News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
It's now 5:05 on this Tuesday afternoon, and with your KVNU local headlines, I'm Will Feelright. Well, Adil Nazir and Adib Nazir have both been charged now in connection with an incident in which a live bomb was found under a news media vehicle in Salt Lake City earlier this month. Now, Adil Nazir was charged with 2 counts of second-degree felony hoax weapon of mass destruction, while Adib Nazir was charged with 2 counts of the same felony, as well as 2 counts of third-degree felony possession of a dangerous weapon by a restricted person. Now, according to court records, bomb squads determined that the device, which was found under a Fox 13 news vehicle, was a real incendiary device and had been lit but failed to go off. Now, the FBI led the investigation, identifying the 2 suspects who had a Magna address. When a search warrant was executed at their home, 2 additional devices that turned out to be hoax weapons of mass destruction were also found. In other news, a Taylorsville man has been charged with drugging and sexually assaulting a teenage girl for more than a week. Andrew Owen, a 22-year-old, was charged with multiple crimes. Now, according to charging documents, a 14-year-old girl told police that she contacted Owen on social media and had asked for a ride home. She said he took her to his residence and that a week or 2 had gone by before she was aware of her surroundings. Now, the girl told investigators that Owen would not let her leave and that she was drugged and raped by him. Now, she also said she was physically assaulted and that she overdosed at one point, with Owen having to use Narcan on her. Police served a search warrant to Owen's residence, recovering drugs and a gun. He's being held in jail without bail. And a Utah man previously convicted of assaulting a woman and holding her in an elevator for more than 2 hours is now facing new charges for allegedly shooting at the same woman. Mikkel Troy Workman is charged with being a restricted person in possession of a gun and also 3 counts of illegal discharge of a firearm. Now, all the charges carry a domestic violence penalty enhancement. Now, according to charging documents, back on September 12th, a 43-year-old woman and her passenger heard a loud noise and the sound of shattering glass as Workman drove up alongside her car in West Valley City. Now, the passenger saw Workman aim the gun at them before he heard 2 more shots as the woman drove away. Now, prosecutors say that Workman was previously convicted of a domestic violence-related offense against the same woman. In 2021, he pleaded guilty to attempted kidnapping for holding the woman in an elevator for approximately 2.5 hours, threatening to take her life. Well, it's been a gorgeous afternoon as temperatures have been in the mid-70s today. Tomorrow, we're going to get back into the high 70s to low 80s as overnight tonight. We'll continue to see mostly clear skies with temperatures dropping into the low 40s and then clear skies continuing through the rest of the week. By the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, going to stay right around 83 for our high. And it's Cardall's Insulation that's taking care of your home, keeping it cool in the summer, warm in the winter, and quiet all year long. Find out if you can qualify for a $1,200 tax credit by calling Cardall's Insulation today at 755-5012. And I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News headlines.
It's been a crazy few months with big rainstorms fueling the weeds in your lawn, garden, or empty lot, and the spiders coming inside to beat the heat. You need help. Let Logan Extermination take care of those pesky weeds and unwanted pests with an exterior lawn application and interior treatment for bugs. Call Logan Extermination today before your home becomes enemy territory. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
Weed control starts at $45. Interior spider spray starts at $95.
Fast and first with the latest news every 30 minutes. News Talk KVNU, your #1 radio station for news and talk.
Everyone has an estate, but do you have an estate plan? This is Jace Allen, Northern Utah's estate planning attorney. At Allen Law Office, wills and trusts are what we do. If you've been putting it off, now is the time to get it done. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect your loved ones, protect your legacy, protect your assets. Start today at cashlegal.com or just search Allen Law Office. Wills and trusts are what we do. Allen Law Office.
Hey golfers, this is Eric Clevin at Birch Creek inviting you to support the Cash Food Pantry and be a team sponsor at the second annual Birdies for Backpacks charity golf event to be played on Tuesday, October 14th. Call Birch Creek today and be a team sponsor and support the Cash Food Pantry Birdies for Backpacks charity golf event to be played on Tuesday, October 14th. Call Birch Creek today.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People, hour 2 of today's show. I'm really excited about this. This is one of my favorite events. I miss it in the summertime. I'm glad when it comes back in the fall. And this is something that runs throughout the school year at Utah State University. And they're also celebrating their Sweet 16. It's called Science Unwrapped, and it's literally an opportunity for not just students, but the community here in Cache Valley to get up on campus and learn from the latest research and the latest researchers, as well as the staff of Utah State University, everything from black holes to AI to best practices in teaching. The Science Unwrapped series has covered it all, and they've kicked off their 25-26 season, celebrating 16 plus years of presenting science to the Cache Valley community in this format. And joining us right now to talk about all of this, communications specialist from Utah State University and our good friend here on the show, Marianne Muffoletto. And Marianne, appreciate you taking some time for us today. I've been a fan for a long time, but I'll be honest, Marianne, I was surprised that it's been 16 years.
Yes, it's just flown by.
That is amazing. And yet, rarely repeating yourselves and oftentimes making it interactive as well as interesting always. That's a pretty long stretch of time to keep this up. How do you keep the excitement in the program?
There are always exciting things going on at Utah State. We have such a wonderful research program. And this year, in 2025, we're celebrating the year of undergraduate research.
Oh, very nice. So the undergraduates get a chance to actually get out there in the spotlight and show what they're working on. I like it.
Absolutely. Utah State has the second oldest undergraduate research program in the nation. And we're very proud of this program we've had for so many years that gets new college students involved in research from their very first year they set foot on campus.
That's amazing. And again, for listeners, this is research from I mean, they've had Science Unwrapped events on dinosaurs and archaeology to black holes to teaching to the stars. I mean, it's honestly been really fun to get up to these events. And we should mention this right out of the gate here, Marianne, before we get too into the history and the 16-year plus celebration on campus this year. But the next upcoming Science Unwrapped event on Friday, October 3rd, and these are free events. Sometimes seating is limited, and they do draw crowds, so you're going to want to get there early to the specific location, but which you can find either via the Facebook page for USU Science Unwrapped, or visit the Science Unwrapped website, which I've linked to on our Facebook page, usu.edu/unwrapped. And coming up October 3rd, the next event from the USU School of Computing, undergrad researchers Chad Mano and Tanner Helms will be presenting on, kind of AI and some ideas they have to help the business world. But they're, as I understand it, Marianne, they're talking about this under the umbrella of the tariff debate that's waging nationally in our foreign policy and our trade policy, but also the reality that business owners are oftentimes trying to keep abreast of the latest regulations, and that can be a challenge. And they've actually made this part of their research at USU.
Yes, the timing of this is fascinating.
It is.
And so Chad Mano is one of our faculty members in the School of Computing. He's also a USU alum.
Oh, wow.
And he worked with undergraduate Tanner Helms to come up with, by using AI, a way of making very cumbersome customs paperwork easier.
So cool. This is, and to get to you work on this as part of your research project as an undergrad, what an opportunity.
Yes, an amazing opportunity. And Chad is involved in projects that allow students to follow their ambitions as entrepreneurs, which is exactly what happened in this case. And this was before we had all the new developments with tariffs.
Sure.
One of these students worked in with a business that did customs and helped companies with import-exports, and discovered that the paperwork is very cumbersome.
I can imagine.
And he thought, we can harness AI to make this much easier. And they did, and they've developed a company called TerraFlow, and lo and behold, the landscape of tariffs has changed a lot in the last 6 months.
Sure. And you can see why business owners might be just drooling over the opportunity to have this research turn into a practical tool for them. It's fascinating. And for those not familiar with the Science Unwrapped format, at the event on October 3rd, you'll get to hear from faculty member Chad Mano and undergrad researcher Tanner Helms. And they'll also talk about how they went about the research, not just what they're trying to produce with this research, but how they go about it, how they got interested in the first place, and it's free. That is, and we should talk about that, Marianne. This was fascinating. So at usu.edu today, and I've linked to this on our Facebook page, there is a great history presented for the Science Unwrapped series, and something I didn't know, Marianne, but almost 17 years ago, when faculty members at Utah State University and scientists Michelle Larson and Mary Hubbard and Shane Larson, they wanted to put together a public outreach program. They wanted to say, hey, we're doing some really cool stuff here on campus, and we'd like the public to get a chance to come and hear about it and learn. And they had three things that were mandatory. It, of course, obviously had to highlight science and research, and it had to be family-friendly, good for all ages, and it had to be free. Those were the three things. And I didn't know that they sat down with only those three foundational ideas, and Science Unwrapped was born from that.
That's how it happens. So they had seen outreach programs at other universities, and they'd kind of gotten an idea of what worked and what didn't work, and they wanted to create something new. And so they had these three ideas you mentioned. They wanted to help people understand the process of science, that a lot of times things don't work. You fail and you have to try again. And they wanted it to be for all ages, and they insisted it needed to be free. And so the unknown was, would people come to a Friday night event about science? Sure.
And
they do.
And the answer was yes, right?
Yes.
These events are, I mean, the event location, Emerald Auditorium there is almost always packed, regardless of the subject. And as I understand, it was really packed for the first event this year, September 19th, the Mummy Mystery event.
Yes, it was wonderful. We had a wonderful time with Dr. Molly Cannon, who is the curator of the Museum of Anthropology at USU, and her undergraduate, Sasha Baldoff. and they told us about a fascinating research project they had where they actually received some ancient mummified remains that were from Egypt, and
Wow.
they had no idea what was inside.
And you don't want to just start opening stuff like that, right?
No, as they said, this was something we literally could not unwrap.
That's right. It was fascinating to see, and the things I learned about the scanning technology that's used in a situation like this, just absolutely mind-blowing. And again, for listeners, these are free events. This research is happening at USU, whether you hear about it or partake in it or not. So Science Unwrapped is an opportunity for you to sit hear from the researchers and learn quite a bit about everything. In addition to the October 3rd event, there's also on November 14th, the next event after that is a presentation, Countdown to Launch. And you'll hear USU electrical engineers and undergrad researchers talking about their NASA-funded satellite project, which is actually planned to launch into space sometime in 2026. So you get to see it and hear about it first right here in your own backyard in Cache Valley up on campus. Again, most of these events take place in the Eccles Science Learning Center's Emmer Auditorium, right, Marianne?
That's correct.
And then oftentimes, when I've attended, they're a bit interactive. There are oftentimes some displays and discussions happening out in the hallways outside the auditorium before the event.
Yes. So with each event begins with a brief talk, about half an hour, and then everyone is invited to go into the atrium to enjoy all kinds of hands-on learning activities.
And it's really fun. The kids are always having a good time, I notice. And then the adults, too, sometimes wanting to get their hands on some of this stuff. And again, this research is taking place right in our own backyard. And this is a way for free that you can get up and be a part of it. Witness history oftentimes, as is the case with the November 14th presentation, Countdown to Launch, but also just really interesting stuff. Again, the next event, Friday, October 3rd, with the presentation Tackling Tariffs, featuring USU computer scientists Tanner Helms and Chad Mano, who will describe an innovative bit of research they've been doing, an entrepreneurial venture, hoping to make it easier for people to tackle changing regulation and trade policy landscapes in business. And that is going to be presented as part of Science Unwrapped, October 3rd. And these events always start at 7 p.m. Am I correct?
Yes.
And again, they're always free.
Yes.
Marianne, I have to ask while we have you here, I know that you've served as communication specialist for the university for years now. What's it like for you to get to talk about this kind of stuff and present it to the general public, the non-student population? That has to be pretty exciting.
It's always exciting. The hands-on learning activities of Science Unwrapped are provided by our students, and most of these students are in varied student clubs like engineering clubs, science clubs, humanities clubs, and it's very exciting to see these students grow in their ability to provide outreach. It's a wonderful learning opportunity for them as well as for the guests who come to Science Unwrapped.
It's fascinating stuff, and I love it. It's one of the benefits of living here in Cache Valley. You've got USU and all this amazing research happening right in our backyard, literally up on the hill there. So take advantage of it. Science Unwrapped will run throughout the year, and again, they have events planned October 3rd and November 14th for the fall semester, with October 3rd focusing on regulation, trade policy, and tackling tariffs, the name of the presentation. Some innovative research that could honestly really help a lot of business owners out there. So fascinating stuff. And Marianne, again, appreciate you taking some time to talk to us about all this. And to tell us about the Sweet 16 celebration. Again, 16 years of Science Unwrapped. You can find out more at usu.edu/unwrapped, and I've linked to that on our Facebook page. And our guest, again, has been USU Communications Specialist Marianne Muffoletto. And Marianne, appreciate taking some time for us. I hope we have an excuse to speak again soon, because I know if we do, it'll be very interesting.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for making the time. And to everyone involved, please thank them for all of us here at KVNU and in the community for planning the Science Unwrapped events as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
And lastly, thank to our listeners for being here. And stick around. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Thanks again to Marianne Muffoletto talking about 16 years of Science Unwrapped, a free event that happens Friday nights at Utah State University throughout the school year, where the public can come up and experience firsthand, learn about current research on everything from dinosaurs and archaeology to black holes and stars to October 3rd, their next event, business challenges. Researchers at USU have come up with an innovative research project that they didn't plan to really be so timely, but with all the trade war and tariff stuff going on back and forth, a lot of businesses are struggling with that. You have changing regulation that also is something they have to keep up on, and USU researchers are experimenting with using AI to keep tabs on all that and wondering if it could be applicable via an app or a service or something in the business world. So they'll present on that research on October 3rd. Before we move along to a new topic, I just wanted to let everyone, so you can, a lot of the past Science Unwrapped events have been made available on the Utah State University College of Science YouTube channel. And I wanted to give everybody just a little taste of what I thought was one of the funniest Science Unwrapped presentations to date. This was just last spring, and this was a presentation on USU's own prehistoric museum. It's in Price, Utah. And researchers presented, Dr. Joshua was his name, Joshua Lively, sorry. And they presented on, why that museum is important, but also some of the recent discoveries at the prehistoric museum. And the kids in the crowd were loving. Here's just a little bit of the audio from that Friday night last spring at a Science Unwrapped event called Terrible, Terrific Lizards.
It's actually not. Animals looked like crocodiles before crocodiles were doing crocodile-like things. So they were swimming around in the rivers and the lakes during the early stages of the age of dinosaurs. And they are some of the most common fossils that we find in these rocks. There's a limb bone. This is the shin. So the tibia, the bone between your knee and your ankle. Phytosaurs have the same bone, and that's one that we found out in the field. So lots and lots of phytosaurs. We have the potential to find early dinosaurs in this formation, which is our big goal.
That little scream you heard at the end of the audio there, that was from a group of elementary age kids who were sitting in the first row. And as Dr. Joshua Lively picked up the skull fossil from the prehistoric museum, items that he'd brought from the prehistoric museum to display, he picked up this gigantic skull with a jaw and teeth and everything, and he just picked it up and he kind of swung it. And as he did, all the kids on the front row leaned back as far as they could. I'm pretty sure one kid actually considered going over the seat into the lap of the person behind them. And Dr. Lively apologized. I didn't mean to scare the kids, but the kids loved it, actually, and they all got to come up and actually take a closer look after that. But it's just, I don't know, it's a fun event. It's good for adults. It's good for kids. And it's one of my favorite things to talk about here on the show, the things we have access to, because Utah State University is just right there on the hill here in Cache Valley. So Science Unwrapped, again, Friday nights at Utah State University. A bit of a break before the next one, October 3rd. They'll be talking about using AI, researchers, how they're using AI to help businesses navigate changing regulation, trade war and tariff changes, and more. And they're looking at AI as a potential way for businesses to have a lot smaller headache trying to figure that out. Their research will be presented October 3rd, and then on November 14th, the next event, they'll be talking about a NASA-funded project at Utah State University, developing a satellite that is actually planned to be launched into space in 2026. Really cool stuff and free. So usu.edu/Science Unwrapped, again, is the website. And stick around. More of KVNU's For the People after this look at the news with KVNU's Will Feel Right. Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Somebody want to talk about this Jimmy Kimmel thing? We can if you want to. I've never watched an episode. I think he's funny. Clips I've seen here and there, and he and as a candidate, Donald Trump, their spats were pretty entertaining, I thought, playing out on social media. But I haven't watched late night talk for a long time, which maybe tells you something about the future of late night talk, and why we're seeing networks talk about getting rid of some of these shows. It might not even have a thing to do with politics. This one did. Yeah. So if people want to talk about it, I realize that we haven't brought it up, but it's all over the news again today. They're bringing Kimmel back. He was suspended. I thought what he said wasn't really that controversial. I think suspension was an overreaction. But I also see why people, overreactive execs at the big companies that own these networks and shows, and so I think the lesson there is they should just stop being so knee jerk. Maybe just take a breath, folks. But because honestly, I watched the Kimmel clip and I thought, why people are upset about that? That said, the shows aren't doing well. So their future, I'm guessing, is kind of limited. All of them, not just Kimmel. It's a format that I think just doesn't maybe work as well anymore. But yeah, they're bringing him back now. People are upset about that. Now the other side of the aisle is upset they're bringing him back. I think the first time in my life I've agreed with Texas United States Senator Ted Cruz. Who said he was very uncomfortable with Brendan Carr, FCC chair appointed by Trump, saying on a podcast, basically threatening them, saying, if they don't cancel Jimmy Kimmel for insulting the president, that Brendan Carr said, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Come on, man. At least try to be professional. You don't say that when you're the FCC chair, and he's backpedaling now and apologizing for saying that, but he should have just known not to, and deservedly that made this blow up into a big thing, and it should when the FCC chair says something like that, but I've never watched an episode. I don't plan to watch an episode. I'm just glad the FCC chair recognizes his mistake and maybe is more careful and professional in the future. But as far as the future of late night talk, I don't know. I bring this up. A listener said, "Why aren't you talking about this?" That's why I'm not talking about it. It's especially now that it's kind of over. It's not that interesting to me. Also, there's so much going on locally. Speaking of that, this is not just a local story, but it's one that has really caught the attention of Utah lawmakers, of conservation groups and land management groups. Ranchers here in Utah have been all over this one. And it involves something that is 24 years old called the Roadless Rule. So this was the first little bit of the George H.W. Bush administration. It was a conservation project called the Roadless Rule, and basically what it is all about is, as the name implies, limiting the number of roads that run through, especially here in the West, some pristine lands. The Roadless Rule basically says if you can avoid a road, do so. That's kind of it. I mean, it's far more complex than that. I don't know how long this thing is. To read it straight through, but it's basically that's all it does. Is it tasks land managers at the federal and state level with defaulting to roadless where you can, leave the land alone, and it's always been very popular here in the West. the president and the Trump administration, one of their earliest moves, didn't get a lot of attention, but it was through executive order, because that's how we're running the country now, because Congress refuses. They're just fundraising. That's all Congress seems to be doing anymore, is fundraising for the reelection campaigns. So now we run the country through executive order, which I think is not going to go well, regardless of who's in the White House. But an executive order to rescind this rule, or to start the process of rescinding it, was issued months and months ago. And so a lengthy process is required in a situation like this, where the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, has to launch a public comment period. And Utah lawmakers were urging Utahns to go in and make a comment, regardless of their opinion. They're saying, let them know how you feel. And Utah lawmakers were split, honestly. There were a couple of lawmakers from southern Utah that were talking more about the ranching side of it, saying, you know, the roadless rule has prohibited ranchers from managing their herds in certain ways, or it stops them from being able to get to certain places where it might be beneficial for them. And of course, you know, people who appreciate public lands are saying, yeah, but tough. They're public lands and they should be kept as wild as possible. And for those who, you know, recreate on them via less destructive ways, by foot or bike or a smaller motorized vehicle. So don't put a permanent road there, is basically what they're saying, and mar it up. And I get both sides of that. But regardless, the public comment period played out, and it's now come to an end. And a nonprofit group called Center for Western Priorities, they're a conservation advocacy group, but they're a different beast than what you think when you hear the word conservation. Because what they're all about is promoting responsible conservation through responsible land management. So basically, this is a group that is trying to get the voice of the ranchers out there and promoting the ranchers as stewards of the land. But their analysis can't be spun in any way, so you can't accuse them of putting their thumb on the scale here. What they did is they basically went through the more than 220,000 comments that were submitted over the 61-day public comment period that just wrapped up yesterday. And they went through, they basically went through all the comments, ran them through analysis, put their whole team on it. I'm sorry, this is a week ago that public comment ended. So they've been working on it for a week. They published this yesterday. And the Center for Western Priorities found that 99% of those who made a public comment opposed rescinding the rule. So the Trump administration has said that doing away with the roadless rule will help them fight and mitigate wildfires. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins said that this was something that would help them maintain wild areas and mitigate wildfires in wild areas. Opponents, including another Trump opponent, U.S. Forest Chief Tom Schultz, said, a lot of times the areas we're talking about, these are areas where we just let the fires burn and should let the fires burn so there's less fuel out there. So not even everyone in the Trump administration is agreeing here. And that's what kind of caught my eye on this. It's interesting because it's a complex issue. The debate, again, is whether the roadless rule be repealed. An executive order has been issued to do that, but the president can't do that through executive order. But they can open the process like this for public comment, and then the expectation is at that point Congress will act. And yeah, that's rolling the dice these days. But Schultz, for example, the U.S. Forest, let me scroll back up to his official title here, U.S. Forest Service Chief. He said, the forests we see today are not the same forests when this rule was passed in 2001. And yes, in a lot of cases, they're overstocked with wildfire fuel. Insect-borne disease has wiped out a lot of older trees, and they've fallen, and the new trees have grown up, and so it still looks like a forest, but there's a lot of fuel out there. And he said, I applaud Secretary Rollins for sparking this discussion, about our forests, but doing away with the roadless rule is the wrong way to get there. And again, citing that the roadless rule would only apply to areas where they usually just let the fires burn to burn the fuel out naturally. So again, it was adopted in 2001. It puts pretty strict limitations on developing any new roads. That's one thing to point out, too. The roadless rule is not about existing roads. They can be maintained and more. The roadless rule is about not making any new within the roughly 60 million acres of public land managed by the Forest Service. And so now Congress has carved things out of this in the past. Idaho and Colorado, I think. To give you a perspective on this, that sounds like a lot, right? 60 million acres. It's 2% of all the land in the country, and around 30% of our national forests. So to put that in more geographical perspective, it's a rule that has always gotten debate. No one's ever been satisfied with this. USDA spokesperson referenced evidence that wildfires already pose a risk significantly for communities near these wild areas, and they do. The wildland-urban interface, we've talked about it many times here on the show. But then again, the also Trump-appointed Forest Service Chief Schultz pushing back on the Trump-appointed Agricultural Secretary, saying this doesn't apply. The roadless rule that stops us from building new roads wouldn't apply to the areas where these wildfires are happening. We just let them burn out there because no one lives near there. And the roads to fight wildfires near population centers where urban areas butt up against rural areas or wild areas, wildland-urban interface, he said, we've already got roads there. So there's no reason to rescind this rule. What happens next? Again, probably nothing because it really depends on Congress taking action. The president, despite the executive order, this just isn't a power the president has. It requires an act of Congress. And they've shown no interest in this. But I thought it was interesting, at least, to see the senator's analysis of the comment. Again, public comments. Again, 99% of 224,000 comments were opposed to rescinding the rule, with most people saying, we don't need to be building more roads out in our forests. There are enough, and we need to protect the wild areas here in the West. So the Center for Western Priorities Analysis can be found via the link on our Facebook page. And this has been a really interesting year for this kind of stuff. You all probably remember the backlash Senator Mike Lee caught earlier this year from his own aisle, from Republicans and conservatives here in Utah. They were the loudest voices asking him to back down on a bill he'd introduced that would have created a process for selling public lands to private developers and owners. And, you expect pushback on that from the left. Well, I mean, everything Mike Lee does gets pushback from the left. But you would expect it when it comes to selling public land to private developers. Conservation groups are going to be livid about that. But again, the interesting thing to me is last spring when Senator Lee announced the bill, the pushback came from the right. In fact, there are still some Twitter accounts out there with about 2-3 million followers that developed just to talk about this, that we should not be selling permanently our public lands. Senator Mike Lee has clarified, saying he just wanted to start a process to create a mechanism for that to happen because none exists. He didn't want to push for the actual sales, but the effort has since stalled. So I don't know. From these two stories, I guess the takeaway here is here in the West, whether you're a left-leaning, tree-hugging hippie or whether you're a lifelong conservative Republican that's thinking more of the ranchers and the outdoor recreation and the places to ride your four-wheelers, both sides find common ground on this. Keep the public lands public and as wild as possible. And very Western attitude, which, by the way, if you ever discuss this, the coalition of right and left that comes together around keeping things wild and public here in Utah. On the West Coast, they don't get it. They don't understand why that brings the left and the right together, but they don't have a lot of public lands left. So maybe they're the lesson on why to avoid it. We'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People right after this. One more USU story today, and this also serves as your lighthearted, feel-good story to send you into your evening. If the news today has been heavy or irritating, this is it's an attempt to offset that, but it is also just interesting news. Per Bronco Mendenhall, Aggies football program is leading the way in a Division I level challenge that was issued by Helper Helper. This is a community service tracking app, and they partnered with the NCAA in general, not just college football, but the entire NCAA, in a challenge to try and get the college programs and athletes more involved and engaged in their community and community service. And Helper Helper today posted some data from this. They posted on social media today that Utah Athletics leads all Division I programs in this year's NCAA Community Engagement Impact Challenge that Helper Helper runs. It began earlier this month, but USU tops the entire division, Division I. They beat out Providence College, University of Dayton, Seattle University, University of San Diego, University of Memphis. And again, this is basically means that you've got team members, staff of the athletics department, and everyone involved, even some of the coaches, going out and volunteering in their community, getting involved with service projects in their community. And in a community like Cache Valley, we're still kind of small. That's a huge impact. So hats off to the top Division I football teams for doing this in general, and even higher hats off to USU for being top of the list, the number one team as this Helper Challenge plays out for getting involved in the community through service and volunteering. The challenge runs throughout the year. It's only been running for about a month, so we'll see if USU falls behind. But right now, number one in the Division I Challenge. Pretty cool stuff. All right. Thank you for tuning in today. Hope you'll stick around. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU Logan.